We were going to make a public service announcement for anybody to find Hind, but she's here. All right, let's get started. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the 7:10 p.m. panel, Employee Retention in Entertainment, Strategies for Keeping Your Talent in the Region. I would like to welcome our panelists, Ahmed Habib, CEO of EDRAC Entertainment, Hind Galadari, Deputy GM, Warner Brothers World, Hisham Al-Ali, VP of HR and Shared Services, which it says, way to stack the deck, from Six Flags Qiddiya, but we all know that in the audience, and Milton Souza, VP of Parks for Sala. Welcome, everyone. Can we get a round of applause for Hind and Ahmed, who missed out? All right, thank you. Here we go. All right, let's get to the questions. We're going to start off with Hind because she has a unique story, which I hope is becoming less unique in our industry, which is where she is today is very much due to her mentors and the people that she was able to talk to and confide in and learn from in her early stages of her entertainment career. And why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Okay, so I started off as a volunteer in a film festival. Not very common in my household. We spoke about it a little bit earlier in a different panel. I come from an Emirati household. Being an operator, running attractions, ticket stubbing and scanning is not your norm, and so I had to look a little outside for inspiration. And I was very blessed, and I like to say I was very blessed that I had mentors or I had managers that I reported into that truly inspired me, but also helped pave the way for me. They showed me that this is not just a job, this is a career path that you can embark on. And so I became more inspired to not only grow in that career, but also to give back. I don't aim to be a CEO of a company one day. It's nice, it's a cute name to have around, right? But I do inspire to become a contributor to the industry in this region. I look to help and inspire others to reach to where they want to reach. Maybe that's where I am, maybe that's beyond that, and it's in different areas of departments as well. But mainly in general, when it comes to our attractions and in industries, this is such an uncommon field. And like you said, I'd like to see it become a little more common. And every year that we come around and every year that we converse with different people, I'd like it to say, it's not uncommon anymore. It's very common. Yes, this person has been in the business. And just earlier, Travis, we said, I've been in this for 15 years. I say it and I'm scared and I'm like, I didn't know I'm going to be in operations for 15 years, but I am. And so the mentors that happened really showed me that it's beyond just the job title, beyond just the work and the everyday. It's beyond just showing up, but it's also knowing more about it, becoming more passionate for it, inspiring others to join. And whether that's your team or your guests, it takes a lot of effort. And if you don't have that passion, if you don't have that support system, you're not going to get far in this industry.
Great, thank you. Do any of the other panelists have a similar story about somebody who helped them in their job growth that they want to share to start off?
Guess it's just me.
Sounds good. Well,
I do, but it's not really entertainment related, so we'll hold off on that one.
No problem, no problem. One of the big things that we see in this region is the risk of poaching. And the reason for that is obviously because entertainment is growing at such an exponential rate throughout the GCC, which is fantastic for everybody in this building, but it does pose problems for, I love that thing. It does pose problems for operations and obviously HR. Hisham, this one's for you. Is there a way that we can do a better job of keeping people? Is there a way that we can make sure that the efforts and the training and the upskilling that we put into our employees, we retain them?
Okay, I think you posed a really valid question. Can everybody hear me fine? Yeah, good. Okay. I think you posed a really valid question, Travis. I mean, it all goes back to the question of the chicken and the egg. What's the primary and what should be the secondary? And then you switch it up. For me, it's always been the primary factor of retaining employees. It's not a matter of fact of making sure that we stop the poachers from reaching out to our employees or making sure they're more accessible. What we care about is the secondary aspect. The secondary we shifted to the primary, which is making sure that we have a great culture within the organization. And when you talk about a great culture within the organization, it's not about giving a lot of benefits. It's about increments, bonuses, and so forth. A lot of big companies are already providing these kind of benefits. What you can do is to make sure you house and foster a very healthy working environment. When you talk about a healthy working environment, you're talking about something that is cascaded from the top and goes all the way down to the bottom. When you make sure that the top level within the organization are all working in a very cohesive way, working together to achieve a common goal, rowing the same boat in one direction. Because if everything trickles down and the employees under them see all these different leaders and they're arguing and they're bickering with each other, then that creates a very hostile, unsafe, stressful environment. So no matter amounts of retention policies that you can do with a certain organization, if people don't feel safe at their jobs, they're not happy of how things are, the culture is not very inclusive, it doesn't matter. They will be always susceptible to easy poaching from other organizations.
Milton, do you agree with that statement? And does Sala do anything to guarantee or to make sure that the culture for the employees is really something that keeps them with the company?
So I think there is a different angle to it being in Saudi at this point of time where things are evolving so fast. So the entire workforce audience is just about getting to know this industry. So at some point, if they are leaving, it's to explore other things also. And while we are running this race, and we are running this race really fast, building the culture takes time. So what's important is to make sure that the employee is having fun, he's enjoying, and he's learning. Because everybody who's joining a new industry wants to learn. So if he's learning, he's enjoying it, the culture will start forming. And a lot of the companies, including Sela, who's recently started doing a lot of things, we are in the formation years, I would say. We are a little ahead, maybe. Qiddiya will start its operations very shortly, but that's when the on-ground reality takes place. And a reality check happens, and that's when we need to start talking to them saying, listen, this is how it works. This is where you can go as a career. But at this point of time, there's a lot of questions with the team that is working with you. So I think that communication is important to tell them where they're going. And quite often, if they don't see them being challenged, they will quit. So culture is the most important, but it will take time. And Saudi is currently just about taking off.
Great, thank you. What level of employee incentivization plays in employee retainment? And part two of that question is, do you see that incentivization is different for different age group demographics of your employees? And this question is open to everybody.
Well, being in operations, I think everybody is here to make some money. So whether we call it incentives or we call it bonuses, that's always the plus. But nobody will leave his job because of incentives or bonuses. 9 out of 10 times he leaves his job because he's not happy. Yes, he might not be happy because of the money, because whatever you tell them, and I think Hashim will very much agree that we say salaries are confidential till 3 months of them joining, and then everybody talks about each other's salaries. Everybody says why I got paid this much less or this much more. While that becomes a debate, if they're happy doing what they're doing or if they're aligned with their managers, then incentives and bonuses are important to give the joy, but it's not the critical part for them to leave.
I actually echo what Milton is saying right now. It's good to have incentives within an organization because incentives is basically the entry point, right? When you give somebody a job offer, the incentives is the lucrative package that is the deciding factor if somebody's going to join. But after somebody joins the organization, it's all about what can you provide me more other than the incentives, the work, the work-life balance. Let's say, for example, I feel very happy in my job. I'm providing a lot of inputs. I love my team. I feel like I'm a part of a very cohesive family, for example. The incentives goes a long way, definitely. And always you should benchmark yourself and update your incentives year by year as you go. But if the working environment is not up to par with what the expectation of the employee, then it becomes really a dying case. And some interesting statistics, as I'm reading yesterday, 60% of people who leave their jobs is not because of, they're not satisfied with their salary or pay or satisfied with their current work. They're not happy with how the team structure is. They're not happy with their managers. They're not happy with the way things are in the company. So there's a difference between when you look at that perspective and you look at another perspective of how ways of doing work within the organization. These things retain the employees from my experience and how I look at it.
I would also say, if you allow me, that incentives may not necessarily be only in cash. For example, job enrichment, job rotation. So if they start working towards getting a new role so that they can start getting multi-skilled, multi-talented, I think that keeps them back also. So it's not necessarily the money.
I was going to say also, and by the way, just to introduce myself, because some people might not know Idrak as a brand, Idrak, but Idrak owns, so I own and manage as well Kidzania in Cairo. You guys might have heard of the brand Kidzania. It's more known. So our front-facing brands are Kidzania, KidStation, Sky Park, Kimit, and Nutty Scientist. Now, I think in terms of retention, there's two things, and I think Hisham touched on it briefly, on core values, right? So you should recruit, hire, and fire people, and I very, very highlight fire people based on core values, right? There was this amazing study that was done regarding core values in a company and what makes people most aligned, right? And they looked at, whether you incentivize, whether you give bonuses, whether you highlight employee of the months and all that off core values. The number one most, whatever the word is, like aligned thing that they found was whether you penalize people who break them. Because sad to say, what they found is that people will drop to the lowest common denominator. So if you have someone breaking your core values on a consistent basis and you're doing nothing about it, you are sending a message to the rest of the company that that's okay. And that's not okay. So the other thing I wanted to touch on is, regarding about retention, one of my favorite quotes is, people leave people don't leave companies, right? So, and if you really dig into exit interviews with people, most of the time on why they're leaving, people are leaving people. And it goes back to people not being happy. A lot of it has to be with the environment, with their coworkers, which goes back to core values, goes back to the family you're creating. So, and I like to put things to Arabize things, especially in our region, that, and the way I explain core values to our staff is that it's a family, right? So when you're going to get married, and this is a very common analogy in the Arabic ecosystem, you go and you say, this family is, forgive me for the Arabic, هم شبهنا, هم أخلاقهم زي أخلاقنا, right? So when I explain that, that is what we are talking about when you're talking about core values. So when you're going to work for a company, you have to look for someone who is shabahak, who belongs in that family, right? And when you find that match, you can really, they're not looking for the pay, they're not looking, after a period of time, they're just happy to be there.
I just want to say something and add to, Ahmed touched on something that's really important. So basically people who break the core values within an organization, leaving them alone and not penalizing them and not being punished for it is what deters the employees and increases the turnover ratio. I remember one of my friends a couple of weeks ago, he called me and he said, Hisham, we have a really big issue within our organization. We increased the bonuses, we increased the incentives, we did all the recognition programs that you can think of. But people are still leaving the company at more than 40% within the organ, and that's very high. The normal average is between 15 to 18%. So I told him basically, everybody's leaving. He's right. I told him, who are the ones that are not leaving? So by understanding the ones who are not leaving, those guys are the ones that are causing the issues in the organization. Please go and fix that. Do not go and burden the company with more financial incentives that are not, providing you any good benefits at the moment.
Hind, what? Yeah, every time. What are the things Warner Brothers does to inspire young employees?
So it's Warner Brothers and beyond. The things that we do to inspire is we focus a lot on our training and development. It's not just once you stepped into it, once you've been recruited and you've been onboarded, one of the, we talked about incentives, right? It's a lot of it comes through the training and the development. You anyways are investing in your people. And once you start investing, that's helping them grow, that's helping them become more loyal. They know that you actually want them to succeed. You're giving them the tools, you're giving them the ability to become more than just the job description gave them. So one of the things that we do work on is a lot on our training and development. We talk about its importance. We make sure it's diversified. So it's not necessarily only focused on what we require as a company, but also as the individuals. It's an individual development plan, an IDP, and it's something that will help them grow further. To some extent, and every company you join, you may reach a roadblock, and that's the maximum you can grow for this period of time. But you may be brilliant, you may have a great experience, you may have great aspirations to grow even further at that point. It may be elsewhere, and Ahmed mentioned it. People don't leave companies, they leave people. Sometimes they also leave for better opportunities, and that's not wrong. It's just we need to understand as a company, we need to understand that we're doing it right, that they're not leaving us because of us. They're leaving us because they found a better opportunity, and we take pride in that because without our support in the development, they wouldn't be reaching where they are reaching or the better positions and the better opportunities. We're all in the business of fun and developing people and growing people in this industry. So I'd always refer back to training and development is one of your biggest oversights, but also your biggest place that you can gain your team. Yeah.
Go ahead. I was just going to ask you if in the edutainment world, you have the same thoughts as Hind does.
I think there's two things. As a CEO of a company, I believe there's a lot of things you're responsible, but number one thing is obviously people, right? I think it's people and it's cash. Like these are two very big things now that you got to really be focusing on. In terms of the third one that I'd really like to touch on is growth, right? Because I think it's I personally hold myself accountable for providing opportunities for growth for my people. Now, if you want to retain good people, there's, like you said, they're either leaving because of the people, or better case for them is that they're leaving for a better opportunity. Now, best case for us is that we are creating internally the growth opportunities for our people. But now, as the leadership team, if you don't have a growth vision and a growth mindset, and you are not growing your company to provide those growth opportunities, then your people are not going to be able to grow unless someone quits, right? Because how am I supposed to promote you unless I've got one of two things? A new company that I built, or a new opportunity, or a new location, or someone quits, right? I am preferring to challenge myself to provide new opportunities to my team. So that is one great way to provide the opportunities for growth internally. The other thing, kind of answering, your question is, I personally think there's two kind of people that are going to join our team. There's the people that are going to stay and grow, and there are people that it's a pit stop. You know what I mean? It's just a stop for them. They're going to get the experience. We are their first job. We hope to inspire them, motivate them, teach them something that's going to help them in life. So we've done a very big job in our company to provide training to our staff that is non-job related, right? We're providing a lot of life skills training to our people and business skills training that we think universities don't provide and businesses need, because we think a lot of our employees are college students or fresh graduates. So these guys are going to leave us and go get a job somewhere else. Now, if I can give them a really good foundation in that 1 year, and ربنا يبارك لنا, and like God bless us for the what we've given them, that's great. And I wish them the best, and they're going to leave. Now, there's other people within those fresh hires that are just insane opportunities for management. Like people you can identify, you're like, oh my God, that guy's going to be brilliant. Now that's a guy I don't want to leave. So what the hell am I doing to keep him? How am I going to create growth so that the person, his boss, gets promoted laterally or up or whatever, and so that he can move up and we can keep this guy? Because if I don't create that growth, this guy's leaving soon.
Milton, does Sala have a specific person that they try and hire? Is there somebody that screams to you that they're going to be amazing for your company?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Sure. Is there a specific type of person that you go after and you recruit that you know is going to be perfect for Sala?
Well, I will say that personally from how I recruit somebody who's ready to enjoy his work. He needs to be able to smile, have fun. That's the most important. And second, he has a work ethic. The work ethic is important, that if there's a job to be getting done, he does it. And he works as a team player. But first and foremost, he should be having fun. So if you're a serious type of a guy, then it doesn't work for me.
The reason I ask the question is because we're in a unique industry, right? If you're not having fun in this industry, you're doing something wrong.
Exactly, but by fun, I don't necessarily mean that you need to be boisterous. Right. You don't need to be loud. You don't need to be an extrovert. You can be in yourself, but still enjoy the work. You can enjoy the people around you. In our industry, you cannot build walls. You cannot be I. You have to be we. Whether you're in the operations or you're in the back of house, you are always a client servicing person, whether it's for the guest or for your own employees. So you need to make sure that you're enjoying the environment and spreading that positivity. So if that person is not positive frame of mind, then we have a problem. And then goes to the values and the various other culture impacts that we have.
Actually, I want to touch on everybody what they said right now about the growth mindset. So I've been blessed to be within an organization that has a lot of great leaders. I mean, and I look at these guys in my company right now, and I'm looking them eye to eye. For example, I'm talking about the VP of Operations, Neil. I'm talking about Olivia, our Senior Director of Aquatics, my Associate Directors, all of them. The growth mindset is the most important aspect within the organization. 70% of our manpower are all fresh graduates. 70% of our manpower are all fresh graduates. And every time we open this topic within this senior leadership team roundtable, we're always saying, let's hire more fresh grads, let's train them, let's make sure we prepare more people into the market. So this is something that I'm very happy about. And also, when I look at everybody within my team and all the other leaders, we always have this mentality of mentorship. And luckily, we opened that program with Gadia's support, the mentorship program. The mentorship program basically is to support all the unique fresh graduates, having somebody they can connect with as a dotted line. They can be a point of inspiration, walk them through the journey, and just give them from whatever life experience has given them. So that's something very, very, very nice within the organization.
One of the other things that we're seeing is something that I refer to as promotion inflation, where a junior level person fills a senior level role because that person has decided to go elsewhere or gets fired or someone is being hired for a role that they aren't qualified due to lack of experience, but they need to fill that position. Are you finding that that's the case in your companies?
We do face that quite often, but if you stay and make that as an exception, it's great. But if that's a rule, then that company is headed for a disaster. And it is not that employee's problem, it is the leadership problem. Because if that employee is grabbing the opportunity because of the title, because of the salary, whatever, but at some point of time, he or she will not be able to perform. And then you will start pulling up the employee and say, listen, your KPIs are not getting done, X, Y, Z, and it's the problem of the management. So as an exception, yes, but then immediately you have to reinforce that person, give him or her as much support, and say, listen, let's try and see how you can have the right tools to deliver the job. Having said that, what Ahmed said is if you are planning the growth, and if you have seen the potential, and you have kept that person in mind, and then you promoted them, though reactive, that person may still deliver. It happens quite often in organizations where they're concerned about cost. They always start promoting the next in line, but actually the salary levels are coming down and down. And that's not really healthy. You pay the right price for the right person.
Yeah, and I think we've noticed this around as well. With the promotion inflation, it does happen, but we always ask the question, why? Why is it happening? We need to go back to the root cause. A lot of times, it's true, it's because a position becomes open and there's a lack of availability and we have to jump up. But then, is that not the fault of the leaders that have not invested in their growth development, right? Why are the next person in not developed enough to be ready to take that step in? And if you're bringing somebody from outside that they're underqualified for that position, again, the question becomes, why are we doing it? Because now you're not only putting your own company at risk, you're putting the entire team system at risk. That ecosystem that you've built in your team, where they're trusting you and they're being loyal to your brand, go like, well, clearly they're just putting in people. So it becomes a much bigger situation than it actually should be. And the root cause need to be looked at before you kind of go into it. And sometimes it's true. Sometimes, you know, a person joins a job 2 months in, their senior leaves, and there wasn't really enough time to develop, and they had to jump in. And that's where Milton kind of puts it. We need to support them. We need to make sure that there is a system in place that they are able to grow within that position they're put in, whether that was due to the unforeseen circumstances or not. It's just let's support and let's make sure that that ecosystem is there to help them grow as well.
I think from my point of view, when you look at the promotion inflation, it's about, is there clear criteria within the organization for how a person is promoted? Is there clear KPIs and competencies for a certain person that needs to take on the next step? Now, this is connected definitely with the talent management aspect and the succession planning. And I mean, one of the biggest challenges me and my OD manager, we always talk about is that some of the leaders within our organization, they create a flat structure, right? So there's a director position or there's a senior position within the organization, and then you just have a lot of juniors under that guy. So this triggers, this is a trigger point for me and my team. So we start to analyze this department or this section, and we try to understand. So this creates a red flag for us. That means if this person leaves the organization, we're going to surely resort to a counter offer process. We're going to resort to an early promotion process, and this is going to trickle down. As soon as that person leaves, we definitely have to promote anybody that's not ready, and this will cause that promotion inflation.
So you see, succession planning is our side of it. The employee cannot be blamed for lack of succession planning.
I think real quick, just to touch on that, what Hashem made me think of is sometimes you have managers that don't share their knowledge. And that is extremely dangerous in an organization.
That's my next question. So,
okay, cool.
Great transition. No, go ahead. That's what So, as we mentioned on the panel, that it can be a top-down issue where the company isn't planning for the opportunity for somebody to come up. And why may that be? One of the things is obviously the sharing of knowledge, right? Please go ahead.
I think, you know, and it has to do with, you obviously have to create a very comfortable, trusting environment where people are willing to be vulnerable and willing to take risks within the company. That's number one. Number two is you really need to identify these people as soon as possible in the company, because they're very, in my opinion, they're very dangerous to that growth. If so, there's a certain mentality, and I've seen it a lot in the region, where certain people will not want to share their know-how or their trade secrets or their operational experience in fear of the younger person replacing them, or especially when you have really strong juniors on the team, right? So that's something I think as senior management you got to really keep an eye out, is that if you see a department that's consistently having an issue, that means that the manager's not training and teaching his people right. The best, I love the expression, I can't remember, I think it's from the book Good to Great, which is a great book, where good managers leave behind great leaders, right? And bad manager, you can tell a bad manager because when they left, there's really no one to fill the role.
Yeah, the quote that I have is, good leaders make followers, great leaders make more leaders, right? Anybody else want to?
Thank you.
No, honestly, I agree with what everybody said right now about good leadership within a certain organization. It's something I always tell my team, and I always tell my friends in my HR circle. You hire the right people under you, and you got to make sure they have the right attitude. 90% of the hires that we have within our organization is based on attitude, character, personality, because everything can be taught in life. Everything can be taught in life. You can get the certification, you can get the knowledge, you can do the 7-20-10, 70% on-job training, 20% leadership training, 10% online training or regular training, but nothing can come close to how making sure somebody has a great character and attitude, because this is something permanent. This is imprinted on as soon as you enter the organization. Another thing that I wanted to touch on is when you hire great people under you, and it doesn't mean, for example, when I was saying, like for example, if you look at, let's say for example, you talk about the finance director, for example. If the finance director hires, strong accounts payable guy, strong accounts receivable guy, strong general ledger and so forth, it doesn't mean that he doesn't know this role, or he's just building a complete team. Everybody's strong in a certain aspect. His role is to make sure everybody can talk and connect with each other towards a common goal, and make sure they don't fight with each other. This creates a really long-lasting effect.
On the note of, the people and sharing knowledge, right, Ahmed? And Hisham touched base on it slightly with the mentorship programs, right? Investing in those is very key, very important. And the organization, in order to kind of really push for leaders rather than managers, is really to invest in mentorship programs within the organization, but also across the board. Yes, we are all at a healthy competition around here, but it's also good to learn from others. You attend, you've got a great team from Qiddiya right now over here, right? You attend SIA Expo, you attend different expos, you get to meet different people from the different industries, and you build those relationships not for networking purposes only, but also to find that mentor that you really didn't think would inspire you, but is now doing that. And so I'm part of one of those mentorship programs where my mentee is all the way in Orlando, right? And we touch base once a month, and you don't really need more than that. But really investing in sharing that knowledge, whether it's across different companies, across different regions, within your company, but the organization needs to be fully vested into it as well, not only coming from an individual perspective.
Yeah, thank you for that, because the next comment I was going to make is, it's very exciting for me in this industry to see so many people from Qiddiya here. They're not talking, they're not necessarily looking at what products to buy, but they're here, they're learning, they're supporting, and that's an attitude and a culture that has been created, right? And so if you want to talk about that as a final hurrah to the majority of our audience today, go ahead.
Thank you, Travis. First of all, I want to say a big shout out to my team, HR and Shared Services and Procurement. Thank you guys for being here. Shout out to Neil and all the other people within the Six Flags and Al Arabia teams. I think what you said right now in terms of the culture. So what is culture? You hire the people. People create norms and standards. Standards becomes the values within the organization. Values is something intangible. You can't see it, and no matter how much money and incentives you throw at it, you can never fix a value within a core value within a company. So people create norms and standards. Standards create the values. Values determine if the company is going to be successful or not, because it's how we work with each other. It's the ways of work. I'm really glad that I'm happy that I have my team and I have the other leaders supporting me tonight. This really shows and highlights the amazing positive work environment that we have within our organization. Olivia is always pushing me to be a better leader, and I'm always pushing her as well. We always have that back and forth between each other. I always learn from Neil. Neil's a board member in the IAPA, so that's one of the key takes. And I always learn from him about the entertainment industry. He's been here more than me, and I'm never shy to say, Neil, I don't know what this means, and I don't know what this process is. Can you tell me more about it? If I stuck in my bunker, in my silo, and I said, I don't care. No, the shared services and HR team should always be close to the business, understand as much as you can, and we have to be humble. We have to be vulnerable. We have to open ourselves. We have to share knowledge, and we have to be willing to absorb as much and help everybody that we come across. Luckily, my team and the rest of the Six Flags in Aqua Arabia are really nice people, and I hope it continues this way. I hope we create a sustainable working culture. I have the best team. Shout out to them. I'm very happy with them. They're very nice people. And I'm going to see them grow, and I'm going to be there to see them grow.
And on the topic of sharing knowledge, does anybody have any questions for our panel? And they would be happy to share their knowledge in the form of answers.
Yes, hello. Thank you, everyone, for the great discussion. That really inspires everyone. But yeah, we have a question. Yeah, we have a question that can support us. If you would like to give an advice about a book that we can read, or any of the growing leaders to read, what kind of book that you would recommend for anyone to read? Shall I repeat the question again? Okay, so yeah, if any of the leaders can tell us about an advice about a book that we can read, a book, yeah, that we can read, and that can help us to in growing in our career and personal life. What would be the name of the book?
Okay, from my experience of working with fresh graduates and everybody else, if they're enjoying work, they start getting comfortable. If they start getting comfortable, they get a little lethargic. If the manager is good, he starts moving that person around. And that's when they start feeling, oh, I don't want to work out here. And if you want to read the book, then you read the book as Who Moved My Cheese? Okay? Read that book, you will realize that when you're moved, it may take you out of your comfort zone, but you are learning.
Can you repeat the name of the book again?
Who Moved My Cheese?
I got like probably a couple for you. One is The 5 Levels of Leadership. I think it's a brilliant book. I already mentioned Good to Great. Another one that I really like is Measure What Matters. It's all about basically data and I think in our industry, because we're not a tech companies per se, but everything now is about data. And within our companies, there's so much data that we can collect throughout the entire journey, and to monitor our employees' performance and stuff, and to monitor most of all, because what employee performance comes down to is guest experience, right? And so Measure What Matters is also a brilliant book. So Good to Great, 5 Levels of Leadership, and Measure What Matters.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys for the great session. I think my question, I want to be away from an HR point of view. No offense, Abasil. You guys mentioned promotion inflation, and I think Melton, you mentioned yes, if you do exceptions, in exception cases. To me, from an HR point of view, I think it's a slippery slope. How do you deal with one exception? Because if you do one exception, I feel like it will just gonna drag more and more. If you do one exception for one leader, the other leader might not take it as well.
Transparency, complete transparency. So if that exception is taking place, right? And you realize from an HR perspective that we have to take this exception. We have to take it on. And so you've managed to find a justification for it. Be transparent with the rest of your team. Let them also understand it the way you understood it, why it's needed, why this change or why this exception is taking place. It's very important to not just simply say, because we said so, it's happening, right? Be more transparent, communicate it very clearly, and a lot of times, whatever that spur of the moment anger we may have, like how dare they, right? We take a step back. At least 10% will take a step back and we'll go like, I may not understand it, but I'm going to accept it because at least you made the effort to explain it to me. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you to our panel.
Thank you.
And as a personal plug, you can stick around for the next panel, and that is balancing the books. So we go from employees to money.
We're out of here, Travis. We're out of here. Thank you, guys.